Honestly, I didn't really think too much about the artwork when I first seen it, but when I actually listened to the album, he may just be throwing subliminal shots at Birdman.
My thoughts on the artwork on If You're Reading This, It's Too Late is that it's very deep. I asked a lot of people their opinion and no one could give me a straight answer. But for me, I had to look into it a little bit further, and I looked at the handwriting and I looked at what the message might mean. And for me, it reminds me of a suicide note or a letter that you leave when you're about to disappear.
The artwork behind it is straight to the point. It says everything that it needs to say, and I kind of took it as like a subliminal to like the situation that's going on with their companies.
My favorite song from If You're Reading This, It's Too Late would have to be Preach with Party Next Door. I know a lot of people won't agree with me, but that has to be my favorite song because ever since the album dropped, that's the song that I've played on repeat day after day.
Legend. Yeah, I don't know, I kind of relate to it a lot, so Legend definitely was my favorite track on there.
Preach, because I like the vibe of it, like it adds a little flavor to the album.
My thoughts on If You're Reading This, It's Too Late is that it's very different from anything else that Drake's put out before. In a way, it's similar to Nothing Was the Same, but it's completely different from Take Care and So Far Gone and any of the other mixtapes. He definitely said in No Telling that he was coming with a different flow, and I think he really brought that. But I think that a lot of people think that when you think different, that it means bad. And this album isn't bad at all.
As far as the mixtape, I honestly think that he just wanted to do something unpredictable aside from the pop rap Drake that we're used to listening to.
I think it was well put together. I don't think it was actually a mixtape. I think it was worked on. It was actually studied and it was put together well. So I mean, I know it was an album. It probably was more so something for a contractual agreement, but I really liked it. It was dope. It was well put together.
My favorite lines would have to be definitely running through the six with my woes. And not because it's one of the best lines, but because it's definitely popular. You can't say that you've been down your Instagram feed in the past month and not seen a caption with that.
I'm gonna be honest, there was a couple, but definitely I go back to Legend. That hook was definitely something that stood out to me. So I mean, it was a bunch of quotable lines, but the chorus on Legend is definitely what stood out to me.
My favorite line has to be doing is one thing, doing it right is a whole different story. I honestly like that line because I feel like there's a lot of people out here doing something, but they're not really doing it. They're just doing it just to say they done it, but they're not doing it to this full potential.
Another line that really meant a lot to me was when Drake said on You and the Six, I used to be teased for being black, and now I'm here and I'm not black enough. And for me, being biracial, that really spoke to me. Because growing up, I felt like being mixed, I didn't know what clique to claim. I didn't know when I would hang out with the white kids, I wasn't really accepted because I wasn't white enough. And now that I'm 25 and I'm mixed, I'm not black enough. And it's like my mom's not black, or I don't have as much clout as somebody whose skin's a little bit darker for me. So I definitely feel Drake and I feel his struggle. And I think that that's where a lot of his music comes from.
He's definitely probably in my 10, but not my top 5. I definitely think he's a dope artist, but not my top 5.
He's been in my top 5. I've been a fan since So Far Gone. And every album, every mixtape that he's released, he's held his spot. Even with my top 5 fluctuating, because I'm a lover of good music. I love dope beats, I love quality lyrics. But his lyrical content is just, it's impeccable, and you can't top that.
Is Drake in my top 5? Yes, he is in my top 5, but by default though, because it's like, if not Drake, then who else, you know? Like he has to be in the top 5 next to Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, you know, Kanye, Jay-Z. Like, if not him, then who else?
For me, If You're Reading This, It's Too Late isn't one of my favorite albums, but it definitely has grown on me. I would still say that Take Care and Nothing Was the Same are my top 2 favorites, but then even So Far Gone and the other mixtapes in between are still holding a spot. Take Care, when it dropped, I listened to Take Care daily for a year straight. Even with Thank Me Later, I listened to that for months on repeat. But I would have to say, If You're Reading This, It's Too Late is definitely growing on me.
I'm not like a Drake fanatic. So I would have to say like number 2 next to Nothing Was the Same. Nothing Was the Same for me is number 1.
3, it definitely shows like his lyrical capability. A lot of people start to think that he turned into an R&B artist. So this project definitely showed that he had bars and went back to that. So it's definitely something I like. It's top 3.
I honestly count this as a mixtape. I feel like he had to drop this for whatever reasons regarding his Cash Money label and Wayne switching or whatever. But I don't really necessarily want to count it as a mixtape because at this point in his career, it's like a mixtape. Like, we don't do mixtapes no more. But I definitely think it's a mixtape though.
It was definitely sounded like an album. Me growing up, mixtapes definitely sounded like freestyles over other people's beats, and this looked like it was well put together. It was real thought of. It seemed like 40 had a lot to do with it, and when them two together, it definitely makes an album. So Far Gone definitely wasn't a mixtape either. With the benefit of there being Jack beats on there as well, it definitely still sounded like an album. So I give this an album feel.
To me, if you're reading this, It's Too Late is definitely a mixtape. I feel like it's not cohesive enough to be an album. I think that it's a bunch of dope songs that he put together just to drop a mixtape, and he classified it as an album for contract purposes. But it's not memorable enough for me to call an album. Like I said, I listened to Take Care on repeat daily for a year straight. So Far Gone, Nothing Was the Same. It still has all the classics. But for me, if you're reading this, It's Too Late. Hasn't made it there yet, but the more I listen to it, I'm sure I'll love it.